Why don't you start?
I actually, for the first time, I got proper gear to properly do a match. Instead of digging through my bag of 100-year-old web gear stuff.
You weren't out there with the bag of moldy old French something that got sent from somewhere that you found in some box?
No, which is a little sad. But as it turns out, modern gear works pretty well.
Oh, isn't that astonishing?
Who could possibly anticipate that?
Sure, okay.
So what I had here was the battle belt concept, as corny as that kind of sounds.
Now, I kind of encourage you down this path, right?
Yes, you absolutely did. And this is a kind of standardized thing that we've seen. A lot of the 3-gun guys have a similar thing.
Similar.
With a Velcro belt that I've seen.
Yep.
But the idea here is we have a really wide waist belt sash sort of thing. And threaded through it is like a rigger's belt that actually holds it onto your person. And the back of this whole deal is set up with MOLLE pouches, or MOLLE webbing, so you can hang whatever you need on it, which in my case is pistol, dump pouch. This is like, of all this stuff, this is one of the single most useful bits.
Dump pouches are very valuable.
Yep. And then I went with 2 of these guys, double taco magazine pouches, where I've got a rifle mag on the inside and a pistol mag on the outside. This one's only half full at the moment. But 2 rifle mags, 2 pistol mags was generally enough to get through any stage. It certainly would be at your match.
Yes.
And it pretty much was here. I occasionally had to, in fact, I brought 1 extra pistol mag pouch that I threw on there for one of the stages. And then I also have this little guy, which is, this is my nod to musty old camo surface.
You have to have something on there.
This is actually the carry pouch for my Setme L bipod.
Okay, and you use that to carry
my modern Spartan.
Loophole Spartan bipod.
Yep.
So I did the same thing. Well, to be honest, I encouraged you to use
very
the
similar
battle belt.
This is a copy of that.
Very similar. So the battle belt, this is Viking Tactical. They call it the Brokos belt. There are other battle belts on the market. I am a huge fan of a lot of what Viking Tactical puts out because it's well thought out gear. And his Brokos belt is well thought out gear. 511's producing it now for Viking Tactical. We both have the same battle belt. I have a Cobra belt in there to lock it onto my person. And same thing, taco pockets or pouches. And the reason these tacos are good is, one, they really do a good job of retaining the magazine. This stuff is held in with little bungee cords. And even with dynamic movement, these are not coming out.
No.
However,
they look really goofy, but they work really well.
Because of those elastic, you can actually pull them out quite easily. So it's an interesting system of retention that you don't, I have never seen a magazine fall out of this when I didn't want it to. But at the same time, they're easy to get in and out.
And they're multi-purpose. You can basically stuff any double-stack pistol mag in those things.
Yep.
And, I haven't tried it, but I wonder if you could stuff AK mags in there.
I think you could put a single stack mag into this as well. And yes, you can put AK mags in here.
Certainly 5.45.
You definitely can.
Yeah.
And so they are very flexible in that they can contain all sorts of different types of magazines. They're very good at retention. And when you use a double stack taco, which you're seeing right here, where I have a rifle mag and a pistol mag stacked on top of each other, when you're using something as simple as a battle belt, it retains a lot of, it allows you to have a lot of real estate.
Yep.
And so with 3 taco pouches, which is what I had, I went with 3. I had 3 pistol mags and 3 rifle mags on a single belt. That's a big deal. Yeah, that's a lot of space and a lot of ammunition easily carried. The dump pouch is extremely important. As you said, there were stages in which the magazines had to start off body, and you'd run up and grab them and just throw them in your dump pouch, or retaining stuff when you're in the middle of Nowheresville so you don't lose your gear.
Yep. That's
not to be understated. I did have a med kit on mine because I believe in them.
And even outside of the actual shooting, this thing is really handy.
Mm-hmm.
If you're loading mags between shooters, and oh, there's a stage briefing and my hands are full of ammo and a mag.
Yep.
Just in the dump pouch, and then you can come back to it later.
Think of it as a little table held onto your belt for stuff you just need to hold on to at a given moment.
Yeah.
I had a med kit because I believe in med kits. They're important. That's a whole other topic. I had my UM84 holster. Now, you had a more specific holster because you're using your RMR-enabled Glock.
Yes, I have a fancy retention holster from Safariland, specifically because the one pistol I own that won't fit in my UM84 is that red dot, RMR red dot. That thing?
Yep, will not fit in a UM84. The UM84 is a underappreciated holster. This is one of the things that we got right for sure.
Yeah.
This thing will hold almost any service pistol. This retention flap does a phenomenal job of retaining any kind of pistol. And the reality is it's still relatively easy to quick draw because I put this little doodle on here that lets me do that. That's just some paracord. But That holster does a good job of making sure your pistol never falls out, will retain any pistol. Obviously, it's meant for a Beretta, so that was a good job. And there was, I think, 2 situations in which I had to speed reholster. And at something as hard as hell, in which the stages are as long as they are, speed reholster is not a big deal when you're putting it back in your UMD4 and just merely closing it. Yeah. So this was excellent, and it does a great job of protecting the gun when you're crawling through dirt and filth.
Yeah, it really does.
And then one more taco holster, which gives me the 3 that I was talking about. So this battle belt is a wonderful way to do things, and you can just pop it on and pop it off.
That's the other really nice thing about it.
This is great for not just hard as hell or anything like that. The reality is you can just pop that clip on your Cobra belt, put it down for a few minutes, put it back on, readjust stuff, get on and off. If you're going for an assault or a match or a stage, put your belt on, do your thing. You can take your belt off. If this pouch had other thing in it, like a repair kit or tools, take the belt off, get to it. It's a fantastic setup. Yeah. So I really believe in this battle belt concept, and it was comfortable to wear all day.
Yeah, it really was.
And we did not even need to have suspenders or braces. So this just around your waist did a fine job. And I think a lot of it's because it distributes so much of the weight so broadly across your body.
And this really isn't that different from the last 75 years of webgear technology. You look at, for example, the US cartridge belt. It's got ammo pockets, and then it's got the little rivet holes, and you hang your extra stuff off the belt.
This happens to be Molly.
This isn't set up to go with a backpack system, and that's, I think, one of the major design differences between it and older military gear.
That, and I would say the width of the belt itself, and this is added.
Oh yeah, it's been improved for
Yeah.
sure. But fundamentally, it's an idea of you have if you're wearing a pants belt, you've got that, and then you've also got your gear belt over the top.
Yes.
And when you're done using it, you just pop it off, dump it.
And one of the really neat things about the Viking Tactics design is you can loop the belt in and out of the Molly sections.
Right.
So you can expose a part of the belt. Like right here, the belt's actually exposed. I skipped this Molly spot, and therefore the belt's exposed. And if I want to use the belt for something that's only belt mountable, not a Molly thing, like this dump pouch is, I just expose the belt, then I run it back under, and then I have Molly again, and then it comes out the side.
Yeah.
So it's really very flexible in
Yeah.
terms of how you configure it.
I did that both for the dump pouch and for that bipod pouch.
So on that note, I would say we're both on the same page. 2 thumbs up for the 511 Viking Tactical Brocos belt.
Yep, and just the concept in general.
Concept in general, although the product we used worked great. Yeah. So there are knockoffs on the market. I don't know about the Condor and all that. This is an instance in which I would say they're not that expensive that it's probably worth buying the legitimate gear.
Sure.
So, and you know what? Viking Tactics makes good stuff. So 2 thumbs up from both of us for that piece of kit.
Yeah.
So let's move on to our pistols. You were talking about what you used. What
Yeah,
you used?
so I have a Glock 19 with a Suarez slide and a Trijicon RMR. Gun worked fine.
Yep.
Had some ammo-related problems.
You did.
I was shooting 115 grain tool ammo, which is, I fully acknowledge, the shittiest 9mm you can buy this side of
Tool and
Pakistan.
9mm seems to be particularly problematic.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is steel-cased, graphite lubricant stuff. And as the match progressed, I started having more and more magazine failures, which I attribute to a combination of that ammo has more friction when it's stacked up than brass case, and moon dust out there. There was a lot of, the wind was pretty heavy all the way through the match. It was a very dry location. We had a lot of very fine sand that was blowing all over the place. And I'm sure, I haven't done it yet.
Still on here, in fact.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's all the way up inside those magazine bodies.
It is.
And as I had more and more of it, the mags started to, stopped feeding all the time.
So
first happened to me with the 2 things where it really had an impact were my 31 round or 33 round extended mag, which worked great at first, and then started to show failures, and my knockoff Magpul block mag.
That failed first.
Yeah. The first time I pulled that thing out, it just took a giant.
But we don't know if it's because of the steel-cased ammunition or if Magpul mags for Glocks just stink.
I don't think they generally stink, but just seeing how much of a difference there was in how quickly that failed versus legit Glock mags.
Yeah.
I have 2 of those Magpul ones, and they are going bye-byes.
Okay.
Not using those things anymore.
Which is interesting because Magpul mags on rifles are phenomenal.
Yeah.
But we'll get into that.
I also, for the second time, I had an issue with the red dot. We've been warned about Trijicon maybe not being the best solution for this sort of pistol application. Of course, the RMR was not designed for pistol slides. It was designed to go on a rifle. Pistol slide, slamming that thing back and forth every time you fire. And there was one point, I don't even remember which stage it was now, sometime on the second day, where I brought the gun up and had no dot. And so I fired, and the dot came back, which has happened to me once before. The first time I fixed it by kind of bending the battery contact down, but you can't take the battery out of that without dismounting the whole sight.
Yep.
So
thus losing 0.
Yep. So I haven't done anything to fix it again. It went the rest of the match without any problems, but I don't know that I wanted. I may look into alternatives for the church gun.
I did not want to jinx you on that. Hand me that for a moment. I did not want to jinx you on that. But I mean, I think this is a very modern, forward-thinking concept. And,
I love the concept.
And the red dot on the pistol should not supplant or completely remove the iron sights. The iron sights still have relevance. Mm-hmm. However, that red dot allows you to do things you can't do with just iron sights.
And it just makes shooting easier. When I'm out there on minute 4 of a 5-minute stage, and I'm tired and wobbly and breathing hard, not having to deal with sight alignment, just put the dot on the target. That was really nice.
Kind of like with a rifle.
Yeah.
Funny. So I don't know why people are finding this to be contentious. They should not be. However, Russell Fagan, Sinister Rifleman, big-time 3-gun shooter, I didn't want to jinx you. I told him you were bringing your RMR Glock. Mm-hmm. And he goes, those will never finish the match. He goes, they fail every time. He said he's never seen one finish a big 3-gun match. And so I didn't want to tell that to you before the match, but then there we are on day 2, and you're like, my RMR is flickering. And I'm like, he said that was going to happen. Yeah. And a bunch of those guys believe in the concept. They don't want to give up on that. So they've moved to Delta points, loophole Delta point pros. He says those seem to do much better.
Okay.
So the RMR is maybe usable, although of questionable reliability in this configuration.
Right. On a rifle, as far as I know, they're fantastic.
Yep. So I'm not saying this is not no-go, but he said that. It happened to you. That starts making me think the RMR may not be the best choice. So on that note, we talked about your Glock. You probably need to start thinking about a Delta point, perhaps. I just went with my Beretta 92 A1. Now, that being said, I have done a G model conversion on this.
Okay.
When I first started using the Beretta, I shot a Beretta, I borrowed a Beretta to match a 2-gun a while back, quite a while ago now, and I absolutely loved it. It shot so well for me, but I was like, why have I been underestimating and not trying to use a Beretta before this? Mm-hmm. And I immediately went out looking to get one. I got an A1 unit, which isn't that different from standard FS. Then started shooting it and immediately started having problems with the safety.
I will point out, people have asked and will ask, why don't you have an A3? And as I recall, the answer is because you wanted one now, and they had that. And
that's the answer. That is the answer. And so, but I immediately started having the safety problem that is sometimes accounted for. And now, maybe that's a training issue, can be. I have to tell you, I'm not a fan of slide-mounted controls. But I like the pistol so much and how well it shoots for me that I was going to tolerate the slide-mounted control. Until the slide-mounted control caused me to enact and engage the safety when I didn't want to. In numerous occasions when I went to shoot, went to bring it up, and the gun didn't fire. So immediately went, okay, that is a real problem, at least for me. It might be a training issue. I don't care to spend the time to train around it because I don't like slide-mounted controls anyway. And I bought a G conversion kit, which turns it into strictly a decocker, not a safety. And this is empty. So as a result, when the hammer is cocked, pushing that, even if accidentally doing that, all it does is decock the hammer, and the gun will still fire.
Right.
Unlike the safety model, where the safety's down or even slightly down, and it just was dead triggered, which is a bigger problem. That said, because this is spring-loaded, I've never accidentally engaged it at all anyway. I've got this thing zeroed, and my gosh, this thing shoots like a house on fire. I shot this gun great.
Yeah.
I had zero concerns about being able to hit anything with this gun, even at the extended range is hard as hell.
Yep.
And the only thing I would say about this is I did not have any happy sticks. I was running the standard quote-unquote 17-round mags. 17-round mags on the Beretta are not 17-round mags. They're 16-round mags. They are 17-round mags if the slide's locked open. You cannot seat that, or maybe you can, I can't. If the mag's loaded to 17, it just does not seat. Yeah. And so I download them to 16, which means I had 16-round mags.
What was funny is when we got there and got to St. George for the match and started taking a closer look at the stage design, a couple of them in particular are, holy cow, this is a ton of, man, those things are way far out there.
High volume round count far away.
Do I even have enough mags? Mm-hmm. And you for 2 GACME, pretty much 2 mags would do it.
Yes.
And so you bring like 3, and you're fine.
Yep.
You bought 2 extra Beretta mags for this.
I had 5 on my person.
And we got to St. George and we're like, boy, it sure would be nice to have an extra stick. And so because the match didn't start till the afternoon, we spent the morning going to a couple little gun shops, and lo and behold, in the miscellaneous magazine bin, I found a couple Triple K aftermarket 30-round Beretta mags, and you were like,
I went, and then I went, no, and then
it's just a little too shitty.
well, not just that. This is where years of match experience kicked in. Change nothing before a big match.
Yeah.
Nothing. And I'm like, that's a change. I'm changing nothing. I will follow my discipline. I know I should not change anything. I will not change anything. So I did not. And the truth is, while I had 5 mags on me, I never ran out of pistol mags. In fact, I don't think I ever went past 3. So it really wasn't the concern it seemed like it was. But part of the reason it wasn't the concern it seemed it was is because, and
I think really well.
I'm not bragging, I shoot this gun really well, and the accuracy was there, and so I had enough no matter what. I neutralized so many targets with one shot that it surprised me. And I'm like, I guess I'm not running out of ammo. But I do not quite understand, and I admit that I was part of this camp, why this gun is underappreciated. I think a lot of servicemen have the same problem they have with the AR. They go into the service, they're issued or trained with a Beretta that has been run over by a truck and beat to shit.
And has been in the service for 25 years.
And it is no longer a viable, good pistol. And they're also not using this G model conversion, which is, I would say, a significant improvement. That G model conversion is huge. This being a safety is no good. But a 92 in proper configuration with the G model that is in good shape, this thing shoots crazy well.
Yeah.
And it was reliable. Even in the moon dust, I never had any issues. The Beretta supposedly is challenging with moon dust and problems and dirt getting into this locking system.
Mm-hmm.
And as dirty as that area was, I never had a problem. And I do think that UM84 holster did a good job of keeping the filth away from the gun.
Yep.
So another 2 big thumbs up for this. The Beretta 92A1 was fantastic. You're doing a great job being a co-host.
Yes.
Very good.
She's really enjoying this.
So we've gone through the pistols. Something we shared because we didn't want to buy 2 of them is we wanted to get first-person video, and we really do like the hard-headed veterans ballistic helmet. We did a video on them. It's a great helmet at a great price. In fact, it's a ballistic helmet at the price of a bump helmet. So if you need a ballistic helmet, they're still good to go. That said, we didn't want to wear a ballistic helmet where we were not expecting ballistic threats for 2 days. So we do have an ops core. This is a legit ops core bump helmet. It's really a piece of plastic with some buffers in here and some good rigging and some rug. I would say the helmet was actually very comfortable.
Yeah, it fit nice and tight. Didn't get in the way.
You didn't even need to use the straps.
No, and in fact, I left it unstrapped because it's set up to hook on the left side.
Yep.
Which is fine for you as a righty.
Correct.
For me, that would potentially interfere with cheek weld.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks really stupid when you have a beard and you clip that thing on. And I just really didn't need the strap.
You're holding the helmet and this looks badass. And when I put it on, I look like a dork. It's like you can't not wear this thing and not look stupid in it. But it's a good piece of equipment. You can tighten back the rear. You don't even need the straps. I did use the straps because I could. And when you it really disappeared. You didn't really know it was on. And part of the reason you can just use the tensioner in the rear is because it's so lightweight. Right. There's not a lot of mass moving around on your head.
Yeah.
The other thing is we had one of the other shooters was going through the trenches, and he told us that he hit one of the boards running through the trenches and nearly knocked himself out. And I will say that I actually did hit my head on a few things in the match with the bump helmet. And while this was not going to deter a ballistic threat, there's something to be said about just a bump helmet. Yeah. Because it's something as hard as hell. You're like, donk. And it's like, instead of damn, and like falling down, it's just donk, and then you keep going.
Yeah.
Valuable. And I can see why guys started going to skateboard helmets and bump helmets, as long as they were willing to accept that it wasn't ballistically rated.
Right.
So the helmet was great.
Yep.
It should be. Go ahead.
I was saying the camera was also great.
And the camera was also great. Now, this camera, I've been intending to do a review on this, and I'm going to.
Yep.
The reason I have not done a review yet is one of the strange things we do on InRange is we actually use this stuff for a while before we do the review. I've been using this helmet intermittently at 2-gun, and now at Hard as Hell, and frankly, it looks pretty beat up.
Yeah, all the corners are knocked up on it.
Everything, the paint's missing, there's scratches all over it, and one of the things I wanted to do with this, because this is intended to be a tactically oriented item, it's not a GoPro, it's meant for warfighters and cops and SWAT to be able to record what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to make sure that this thing was going to hold up for what its intended purpose was, not us shooting matches.
Right.
And it's really cool. When you turn it on, it actually talks to you via buzzing.
Yep. When
you have the helmet on, it goes bzz, 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 and it lets you know when it's recording or when it's turning off or when the battery's low, just through that tactile feedback.
Yeah.
And it does give really good video and acceptable audio. So there's going to be a review on this, but this Mohawk helmet, if you're in the market for a GoPro or something more durable, I would say this Mohawk, I'm going to already say it's good to go.
Yeah.
As long as you've got the right way to mount it with some kind of rug on a helmet or a skateboard helmet or something, this Mohawk served us very well.
Yep.
And we went through both days recording lots of content with 2 CR123s, and it's still running.
Yep.
So
didn't have to deal with, didn't run out of space, didn't run out of battery.
Everything was great. But
it just worked.
the OpsSquare helmet's also really nice for night vision if you happen to have it. This built-in mount here and the rug here for a counterweight, really cool for that. So helmet, good to go. Bad thing. Boy, that's contentious, which is funny. I didn't expect it to be. I saw comments. I posted a picture at the match of some of my gear laid out.
Yeah.
And people were like, those are dumb. Well, I'm like, why? I just put 2 40s together with a clamp. Well, you could.
Sure.
However, this gives you the overall length of a 30 with 60 rounds.
Yeah.
So how'd that work for you?
Flawlessly.
Yep.
We each have one. We bought these also like a year ago.
Yep.
Fairly shortly
With our own
after
money.
they
This is
finally came out.
not sponsored. We bought these at a gun show.
Yep. Figuring, well, give them a try. And the 2 high cap mags that I have, well, we both have, are these, and we each have a 60 and 100 round Surefire mag.
Yes.
And you bought one of those early, and then we each have one of them that Jim Sullivan gave us, and he's the guy who actually designed the thing.
Which to me are mementos at this point. I personally received a magazine from Jim Sullivan that's staying in my stuff of cool guy stuff forever.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you what, I'm more confident in this.
Hate to say
sorry,
it.
Jim.
Sorry, Jim. This is better.
I had literally no malfunctions of any kind. These are easier to load. They actually tell you when they're full, which the Surefires don't.
They do not. They're also not. This is not as long as even a 60-round Surefire.
They're short. This is a single stack of cartridges that goes down and winds its way through the drum.
Yep.
Unlike the Surefires, which are quad stack mags that
with multiple springs and followers,
and there's more friction in there, and it just.
Now the Surefire that I got from Jim, I had nothing but success with.
I've never had a failure with one of my Surefires.
The Surefire that I got, that I had purchased, which might have been one of the quote-unquote early models, that was before I received that one from Jim, I had a lot of problems with.
Okay.
And there was a lot of voodoo in the 3-gun and the multi-gun community about how to load a Surefire mag. Some people were like, load it with stripper clips, only use brass ammo. The brass ammo thing was real, kind of like your Glock mags. That is not a problem with the D60. And so if you did all the voodoo and kept it clean, the Surefire mag ran. But this is filthy. It is covered in moon dust. There's moon dust in here. I know there is because I can see it. And this did not have any malfunctions throughout the entire course of fire.
None.
Like I said, the length of a 30, you can monopod on it. And it's actually a pretty nice flat place. You can monopod on that pretty well when you're on the rifle. The only caveat I would say to this, there's 2. It's slow to reload it. You have to sit here and crank on this thing and put in the round, and crank on the thing and put in the round. But once it's loaded, it's loaded.
Yep.
It's a little wonky on your kit.
Yeah, there's no good way to. That was one of the biggest problems I had with it. Inconveniences that I had with it was there were a lot of stages at Hard as Hell where you did not start with the rifle loaded.
Yes.
You started with the rifle empty. Maybe it was empty in a bucket halfway down range, or maybe it was in your hand empty because they wanted you to traverse some physical thing before making the rifle
Run
hot.
across bridge, load gun.
But that thing's a pain in the butt to load. Maybe you can do it, but it's not easy to load that thing on a closed bolt. And that's how these were always. The rifle was, if it started unloaded, it started unloaded, bolt closed, which means get the rifle, open the bolt, lock it open, close the charging handle, and then grab that thing.
Yep.
And I didn't bother to buy or provide or carry a pouch for that thing. Although even if you do, it's not like it's a speed load, quick draw.
I tried. I bought the official pouch for this, thinking that and I put it on my gear, and I'm like, this is terrible.
Why do I get a feeling that it's all like a snail drum Luger mag?
It's exactly what it is like. It's like a big old thing, and it sits in there, and you got to clip it open it up, pull the darn thing out, align it. It's no good. It was easier to throw this in my dump pouch.
That's exactly what I did.
Than it was to use the official pouch.
Yep.
So unlike a 30 or 40 round or a standard traditional box magazine, you can't download this by 2 and then seat it on a closed bolt because the tension of the drum is always consistent regardless of that. Yeah. So it doesn't work that way.
Well, it gets a little weaker at the end, but you have to download that by like 30.
If you wanted to make this a 30 round mag, then maybe you could do it. But when it's under 6, when it's loaded to 60 or 58 or 55, you can't. Maybe some of you out there can. I would not advise to do this. It's very hard, if not impossible, to seat this on a closed bolt. So like you said, you lock the bolt open, put it in, close it, And then, because the tension on the first round is actually so strong, even a well-maintained AR doesn't always quite chamber the first round.
I think I had one time when I had to give the little.
So the point is that if you have this in your gun and hot, you're good to go.
Yep.
If you have to load this on the clock, you have to make sure you really want to use it.
Yeah.
But if you were to be going out in an engagement or starting a stage, and this was your primary feeding device, you would lock the bolt open, put it in, run the action, make sure it chambers the first round, close the dust cover, put it on safe, and leave it that way.
Yep.
And it runs incredibly reliable.
Yeah.
So another 2 thumbs up for the PMAG D60.
It is expensive.
Yep.
If you calculate it in dollars per round, it's probably the most expensive mag you could use.
It might be
like $160.
There's probably some HK thing that's made out of unobtainium or something, but yeah.
True. But that said, and I'm not going to go out and buy a lot of them.
No,
having one, done.
I don't know how you would even deal with 2. I mean, it's like if you were to have 2 pouches like this or something, and then
it's like carrying show shop magazines. You need some sort of weird specialized web gear to deal with.
I think this seems like a good mag to start with, and then abandon or dump pouch, and then go to box mags after that. Maybe you could use 40s if you don't want 30s, but this worked really well.
This is why nobody in the military ever really uses drums in that significant of a manner.
I could see that being practical.
Yeah, one.
No, the first one. Or like an IAR kind of config where maybe you'd have like a bag of them. Or no joke, an assistant, a box or bag of them. You just pull one out, put it in, and I think there's ways.
But they're just bulky and clumsy to
carry. They are.
Yeah.
They are. So let's, before we get to the rifles, which I'm sure everyone's like, what about the What Would Stoner Do rifles? Let's go to the next thing.
Rifles?
What would they?
I thought this was all just a pistol match.
Tula.
Yeah, Tula ammo.
Okay, we talked about the 9mm not being bueno. Tula ammo, 223, 75 grain, hollow point.
Yep.
This is the 75 grain equivalent for, now Mark 262 is a 77 grain, but we were looking for something that was in the 75 grain realm.
Yep.
Because our What Would Stoner Do rifles are configured and zeroed around 75 grain ammunition.
Yep.
This stuff is, if you can find it, obtainable for around 25 cents to 30 cents a round. My experience with Tula 75 grain in particular is that it's actually a little better than their 55 grain stuff. Although I've not really had a problem with their 55 grain stuff either. The 55 grain stuff is kind of not very accurate because the bullets, the projectiles themselves are kind of eh. Mm-hmm. My experience with the 75 grain stuff is that they are better than eh because they're manufacturing it specifically to be something different. And we had, I think, 0 issues.
Yeah, I had none. We will need to and will take that stuff out and actually do some accuracy testing with it. But you cleared all of the long range with the exception of one rifle spinner. Mm-hmm. With that ammo and
I did.
It can't be that bad.
I was shooting this stuff out to 300 plus yards on 10-inch circles with a 14.5-inch barrel and a red dot with Tula 75 grain ammo and got them all.
Yeah.
So it was not this that held me back.
Right.
Now, I do think we are going to do an accuracy test, and we're going to put this against what is legitimate military issue Mark 262.
Yep. You have a little bit of that.
I have about 100 rounds of it. So we'll do that, and we'll prove out how good this is in comparison. But I can tell you, for stuff as hard as hell was, this was fine.
Yeah. And it meant we didn't have to go spending 60 or 75 cents or $1 a round on ammo that was mostly going to be used on paper at 5 yards.
It also meant that every 5-yard target that I double tapped, I didn't spend $1.20. Right. Or $2 for that matter. So when you shoot a lot, this stuff matters, and all you guys are like, Tula sucks. Well, maybe it sucks, but guess what? I'd rather shoot than not shoot, and saving money makes a difference. And, you're going to destroy your extractor, you're going to destroy your ejector, you're going to destroy your barrel. Those are all replaceable parts. They're nitrided barrels, and I don't care. Frankly, by the time I've destroyed the barrel, it was time for me to spin it off, put a new barrel on anyway, and the amount of money I saved on that crap-ass Tula ammo saved me enough money to buy another barrel.
Yep.
So, ammo good, love it, had no problems with it. All right, the bell of the ball. I don't want to go too deep because we're going to be doing a deep dive on every subcomponent. So let's talk about the rifle platform and how it served you as a whole.
All right.
How did your DMR What Would Stoner Do rifle do?
Pretty well.
Pretty well.
Pretty well. Not perfectly.
Okay.
I think as a DMR rifle, it wasn't quite up to the task of the long range challenge.
Okay.
Now, certainly that's in conjunction with my shooting skills, which were also not up to the task of this match. Not just that they were 8 to 12 inch plates at about 300. It was that in a 25 mile an hour
or 30 mile an hour crosswind,
perpendicular crosswind, and sometimes shifting. It was quite windy, especially the first day, but really the whole weekend.
I'm going to add something to that real quick. Russell Fagan and I, who he won Trooper, by the way, we were looking at the data. And when I was shooting my worst stage, which was in horrible wind, guess what time was his worst stage? The same time. His worst stage was my worst stage at the same time because of the wind conditions. That's the nature of the beast. We were just looking for analytics. Yeah. And he's like, when did you shoot this stage? I'm like, I don't know. He's like, that's when I was shooting that stage. He goes, oh, both our worst stages were at the same time. So conditions matter.
I think that the long-range rifle in this hard as hell match was more substantial than a DMR configuration was designed for. Now, that said, you cleared it with a red dot.
Yeah.
If I were setting up a rifle specifically for hard as hell, I would use a variable power optic, because that's what the stage is. That's the lineage of the stage design. That's what variable power optics have come to be designed for. There's a symbiotic thing there. The 3-gun encourages the variable, because you can crank it down to 1 for close and then crank it up to, at first 4, now 6 or 8 for long range, and go back and forth very easily. I still continue to really like the concept of a moderate, even low power, fixed magnification optic.
So you're not convinced yet?
I'm not.
Because more and more people, real world dudes, are
using variables.
They're moving into variables. And there's more than one reason for that. One of them is that even a human-sized target presentation may not be the entire person. It might be just the head.
That's true.
And the ability, just like hunting, to go to 8, identify, and then if you don't need 8, zoom back to 4.
That's true.
Has merit too.
Yep.
Right? You don't have that here.
Correct. Now we're going to talk about the optic in detail.
That's another
separate
video. Okay.
Beyond that, the rifle did fantastic. The lightness. There were times when we're like carrying a backpack and carrying the belt and carrying the rifle, moving all our crap from one stage to another. And you know what? The rifle was the lightest thing we had.
That is absolutely true. That was an epiphany. When we were walking from stage to stage, there was a moment where I picked up my bag o' ammo because I didn't want to go back to the car. We essentially were Trooper without Trooper, because the only thing we didn't do was carry the bag through the stage.
Yeah.
But we had camera gear, audio gear, ammo. We didn't want to go back to the car.
No, we carried all the ammo for the day.
We had everything. We had everything we need to be self-sustaining for the entire day.
Yep.
The only difference is we didn't carry it through the stage.
Right.
But anyways, I put all that junk on, and then I'd pick up my what would Stoner do rifle, throw it on this thing. I'm like, whoop. I'm not kidding. It really felt like that was the lightest part of my kit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They handled well. All of the weapon manipulation was good. The bipod, I did not get much opportunity to use the bipod.
That's another 3-gun thing. We're seeing less and less bipod use in 3-gun.
Every time there's a long-range stage, it's set up where you're shooting off a barricade of some sort.
Thus meaning you don't need a bipod.
Right. So there were 2 stages where the bipod was usable. One I got to use. The other was the spinner, the stage of just endless spinner doom, where I basically timed out. In fact, I literally timed out before I got to it.
It was a 150-yard rifle spinner in 30-mile-an-hour crosswind.
So just as well that I didn't get to it, because I wouldn't have spun it anyway.
There were also 4-inch auto poppers at 150 yards as well, which looked like little black specks on the horizon.
And that was after clearing 3 pistol spinners.
Correct.
So didn't get a chance to use it there. I maintain that I still think it's a practical and useful thing to have on the gun, but didn't get to showcase it in this match.
So the rifle as a whole, you said you had no reliability issues.
None.
No malfunctions, correct? I don't think you had any malfunctions.
I had one instance where I had to, where I put this in and dropped the bolt, and it went halfway and then pulled back.
That's because of the drum.
And that's the tension on the drum.
I've seen that on multiple airs.
Beyond that,
one thing one thing that people may not have taken home with our introduction about the What Would Stoner Do rifles is that this is a project, a work in process.
yes.
This is not, everything we did in the introduction does not mean that's where these are going to stay. This is an evolving concept.
In fact, I've already added a weapon light to this, which was not on it last weekend when we did the match, because that just seems like something that ought to be on a rifle that's general purpose.
Any rifle that has any general purpose application, whether it's for real world tactical use or even match use or home defense, needs a white light.
Yeah.
Requires a white light. If you can't identify what you're shooting at, you can't shoot it.
I have done this before. I've been the guy making this joke that how stupid is it to have a white light and a bipod on the same rifle? Pick what you're going to shoot.
I never saw that joke.
Yeah, I'm guilty of having cracked that one myself.
Okay.
But the rationale for it is this is a rifle that is capable of 300-400 yard shots.
Yep.
And the bipod helps with that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also a rifle that is totally at home at 3 yards. In the dark in the house.
Totally.
I think this is a fantastic type of rifle to throw in the trunk
mm-hmm.
and always have with me
mm-hmm.
because it can kind of do anything. But you know what? Sometimes you're driving around at night.
Mm-hmm. Or in your house at night.
And there's nothing that prevents this rifle from being used at very close range. Usually, you know, what's goofy is if you've got a 15-pound precision rifle with a flashlight on.
Okay.
This,
it makes a lot of sense.
I think it does.
Yep.
So that's why I've put that on there. I think there, I don't want to go into detail yet. There are a couple other changes we're going to make to this.
Yep.
That we'll touch on as we look at some of the other specific
One we can say real quick, just because people are probably going to notice, is we did change your ambidextrous full release.
Right, that's right. We didn't talk about that before.
And that's another deep dive. So we're not going to go into this in depth. We found the bad lever, or whatever the hell it was called. It was
awkward.
It's a hack.
Yeah.
And people recommended this. I have to admit, it was viewers that recommended it. I hadn't seen it before. It's called the PDQ.
Yep. And
it requires you to mill away on the receiver to actually get it to fit. But boy, that's a better answer.
Yeah, it really is.
That thing's fantastic, and that's a whole other separate video.
Yep.
But we've added a more ambidextrous handling to the gun with a much better solution.
Yep.
And you've decided to add a white light.
Yep.
And the scope, you are trying to figure out where the sweet point is.
Yep. And I may be moving the bipod back a little bit.
Okay.
The farther forward the bipod is, the less you can actually swing the gun without having to move your entire body.
It's true.
So farther forward is nice for balance. It's also nice for recoil mitigation.
Mm-hmm.
But there is no recoil in this rifle to begin with.
No, not really.
Not at a 5.56, there really is none. And it occurred to me that I put this here because that's just kind of where I default.
That's where you put bipods.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
So actually, I lied. There's one other reason to put it up front. And that is because getting in there with a little wrench to attach
Was easier
the mount is going to be tricky back there.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we can make it work. And I will probably move the bipod to something like that.
It's funny because we saw them doing that with the FG42.
Right.
They moved the bipod to 2 different locations for 2 different reasons.
Yep, exactly.
So you're having the same debate.
Yeah. So we'll tweak that. What about you? You threw some extra crap on there.
Yeah, mine's changing a little too, and it's evolving as well, and it's evolving in a way that you haven't even seen yet. So I'll clear this real quick. We're clear. Okay. So on mine, a couple things have changed since we saw the introduction. I switched to this M-lock version of the AFG.
Okay.
I do like angled grips. I like either vertical grips or angled grips. I wanted less stuff to hang up on, and the angled grip gives me a good solution for, now that I've added more general purpose equipment to the front of my rifle, a hand stop. It's really, when I go here, I've got access to my light, got access to my pressure pad for my laser system, which I'll get into in a minute. And so this right here is a good place to grab onto, and I can always index.
Yep.
It also gives me a place to brace against things,
yep.
So I can go against a barricade and pull against it.
Yep.
Or here, I can push against a barricade.
Yeah.
Having something to push or pull against on a barricade is valuable, and I think it's something you're missing on your rifle.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So the laser system, what I did when I went to the Hard as Hell is I'm trying to, as we are trying to evolve the What Would Stoner Do gun project.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to go to the match with this configured, how I would have it as my general purpose rifle, even though some of the equipment I put on it had no relevancy to the match.
Right.
This match did not require a white light, although it could have if there was a dark tunnel or something. It just never happened.
Mm-hmm.
So the white light kind of made sense. I did throw on my RR and visible laser designation unit with pressure pad because that's how I want to run the gun, because I do have night vision, and I like the idea of the laser being my backup sighting system, right? I also have still left this rail area empty.
Yep.
And I did not put a magnifier on it because I did not want to shoot against people with magnifiers. I wanted to stay in what was called limited.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also rail space for not only a magnifier, but also if I want to mount a PVS-14 behind my Hollow Sun, I can. So this rail space being open is required to be able to do that.
Right.
And there's there's something it's so I can have rail space here. That's a whole other conversation. The Hollow Sun did fantastic. This sight is killer. The automatic light adjustment from the solar panel, I used it on some stages, but on other stages I went to manual mode because I wanted to bring the dot down to the lowest possible brightness that it could be, but still be usable on teeny tiny long-range targets. When the sun is super bright outside and this solar panel goes wee and this thing starts glowing super bright, great for intermediate range target engagement, or if you're running between light and dark. But when I'm shooting a 4-inch plate at 150 yards, you don't want that brightness to be very intense.
Right.
So by going manual and bringing it down to the minimal, then I had the dimmest dot, which gave me the most precise aiming point.
The least amount of flare around the dot.
Bloom, what I think would be the word to use. So I got rid of the bloom, okay? I have not put the PDQ lever on here for ambidextrous handling because I don't need it, but I'm going to put it on anyway because we're making these rifles alike.
Okay.
The SLT1, the brand new trigger from KE Arms, was awesome. zero malfunctions, wonderful trigger pull.
We did, however, run into a guy who actually he got crushed in a stage because he had a primer come out and go.
No, there was two of them I heard
Were there
about.
two?
There was two. You heard about one. There was one other guy that told me about it.
We talked to one guy in particular in person, and it's the sort of thing you can't really replicate it on demand. I know you tried for a while.
I tried really hard and I couldn't get it to happen.
But it just occasionally happens, and it usually happens at the worst possible time, like on a stage at Hard as Hell.
It will happen at the clock or in combat.
Yeah.
That's when it'll happen. But a primer popping out, which can happen with properly manufactured ammunition, it really can. It will, only when it matters, magically migrate into your fabric. I'm serious, into your fire control group and jam the gun up.
Can't do it with this trigger, though.
This trigger mitigates that dramatically. So this trigger was excellent. Safety was excellent. The ability to put the safety on or off, even with the hammer down, to me is a good thing. I like it. That's another debate for another day. One other thing I did from the beginning of the introduction video, which maybe people had not noticed, is I just have a standard USGI charging handle on here. You have the improved charging handle with the gas misdirection system, and an extended charging handle. You probably did not have this problem, especially being left-handed. It's less of an issue. That extended charging handle, when you throw this thing on your back, that thing hurts.
Yeah.
And it really does. And that extended charging handle tends to catch on gear. Now, it may not have happened to you at this match, but when I was getting ready for the match, it was catching on gear for me. I've used those extended charging handles before, but not necessarily in an environment like HA. And so I just went to the standard GI one because, one, when you throw this on your back, it doesn't hurt. And two, it's less likely to get caught on something.
Yep.
I am looking into solutions for this, and in fact, you didn't know this yet. I've acquired a new product that I bought one of for us to test with that's supposed to mitigate both the problems.
Nice.
It's supposed to give you ambidextrous charging handle as well as not catch on gear. In fact, it was designed specifically for, I'm not going to say who yet because I don't want to talk about it, for paratroopers.
Interesting.
So if it turns out to be the right solution, and this is where the What Would Stoner Do project is going to continue to evolve, ultimately, when we're done with this, we're going to be like, these products and these items are the way we think it's good to go.
Right.
So I ran with a standard USGI one. The one that's coming may be the better answer. We will find out.
Cool.
But this currently does not do anything for gas mitigation, and that's not great. So that's one of the things I want to improve.
Okay. I will point out, for the setup of this rifle, both because I'm left-handed and because I have the optic, that extended lever does have more viability than it needs on your rifle.
I agree.
You don't really need it there so much. It's more useful for me.
I agree, and when you're running the PVS-14 here or whatever, an extended charging handle will help.
Yeah.
And so everything's
a trade-off.
Everything is a compromise. I think the one that I have ordered fixes both the problems.
Okay.
So let's see when that gets here, and there's going to be a video about that, of course.
Cool.
And you are running the Gemtech adjustable bolt carrier group.
Yes.
Which is another video.
Yeah.
But you had no issues with it.
No.
Okay, perfect.
And we never used it.
No,
That's
because
set up to be configurable with a suppressor. Didn't use a suppressor. And you'd never have known it was anything special.
I wanted to give a glowing review for the Viking Tactics 2-point adjustable sling because we went through an entire training regimen to get you ready to use it.
Yep.
And there was almost no reason to use it at the match.
Yeah.
So we have these cool, kick-ass adjustable 2-point slings, which I'm a huge proponent of. And there was 2 stages where I think we slung up for something briefly.
Yeah.
I thought we were going to have a lot more transition and dynamic, throw gun on back, climb over wall. They had us stitch in the guns almost every time.
Yeah.
So we did not really get to put this to the test.
And what's interesting is when you are actually ditching the gun, that sling goes from being neutral to being an actual hindrance. Because what you do not want to do is have the sling on and then have to take it off to ditch the gun.
There was one stage in particular where we shot a bunch of stuff. You had to clear the gun to make sure it was empty, and you had to retain the rifle, jump over the pit of whatever, and then climb up a ladder, and then engage from a sniper tower.
And then ditch the gun at the top.
And then ditch it at the end. See, this is where artificial stage design has to be safe, but some of those artificialities cause you to do things you wouldn't do in real life. This sling, being able to retain the rifle, is valuable and hugely important.
Yeah.
However, in that particular stage, it was much better just to hold the rifle, jump over the pit, climb up the ladder like this, shoot, because at the end you were throwing it in a trash can.
Right.
Now, if the stage design, and this is what I might want to recommend for Hard as Hell going forward and next year, is retain the rifle throughout the entire course of fire for all divisions. They make sure it's clear and empty and safe, but you have to have it all the time. Now, suddenly this is not the liability that it was, it's now an advantage.
Right.
So I think that would be a good recommendation for the next year.
And that's clearly the more realistic approach to take.
It's something
there aren't a whole lot of real-world situations where you throw your rifle away.
It's something I know people are already thinking this. Why don't you do this at 2 Acme then? I can't. I can't do it at 2 GACME because I am under the range rules
Right.
of that range. Since Ken and the subs team runs subs, they set their own dictates.
And they're comfortable with clearing rifles and then carrying them.
If my range would allow me to do it, I would clear rifles and retain rifles throughout entire courses of fire. I can't because of my range. So maybe hard as hell can in the second year, I would recommend, I'll talk to Ken about this, retain the rifle throughout the entire course of fire.
Yeah.
And that will also be a real big wrench in some of the 3-gun guys because their gear is not set up that way.
Yeah.
So that would be very interesting. But so I would say my gun had 0 malfunctions. It ran in my general purpose application roll with stuff on it that didn't need to be there. We should flawlessly.
Should point out this thing is still at the weight of an SP1
With
all the stuff on it.
with the Hollow Sun and my Russian Zenico IR and visible laser unit and pressure pad and light and vertical grip, this gun now is coming in at 6 pounds 5 ounces, which is still less than an SP1, or right around an SP1. So this gun in this config is still an SP1 weight. The other thing I would like to mention is the carbon fiber free float tube was excellent.
Yeah.
It cooled really well.
Yep.
However, one caveat, these bolts that tighten down here that lock this free float tube to the system, when the gun, after some of these stages I shot 65 rounds or 70 rounds, even one of them, that got hot. These 2 bolts here, flaming freaking hot. Do not touch those bolts. That's the only, everything else was great. The weight was great. The fact that it's vented to cool the barrel was great. Holding it like this was great. Holding it like that was fine. Even though the gas tube's right here, holding it was fine. Just don't touch those 2 bolts.
Yeah.
Something to think about. Other than that, everything was fantastic. So,
cool.
And the last part of gear that I want to talk about before we're done is we used, for box feeding or box magazines, we used PMags.
Yep.
We had this debate with some of the shooters there. In fact, one of the guys that was new to the shooting environment, he had USGI mags that he got, I think, for $8 or $9 a piece.
Yep.
And we're not making fun. He had constant problems.
He did. Yeah.
His gun had double feeds. It had
mag-related.
He had a bolt override.
It was a nice gun
with USGI mags. Here's the insidious thing about USGI mags. Even if you bought $20 ones, they are aluminum lips that you can't tell really very reliably if they're okay or not.
Right.
So you might have a perfect one, you might not have a perfect one. You find out when it malfunctions. Doing the whole test where you hit it can help. But here's the thing. PMags are now military issue. The Marines have adopted them. They're durable as hell. And when they fail, they're obvious.
Right.
And
like the feedlet snaps off.
Now, there are other polymer mags on the market. However, these are the most prolific. They have a lot of market use. They have a lot of T&E as a result. I've used them. I have never, I'm telling you, this is the honest truth, never have a problem with a PMag. Ever in my entire shooting career. And I'm not a shill for Magpool. I don't even know a guy at Magpool. But these mags, plain work. And if you want your gun to work, just, I know they don't fit in my pouch as well. Or what. Okay, fine. It's more important to have a reliable magazine. Yep, PMags work. As long as you're running an AR and they fit your mag well, use a damn PMag. Don't stop fighting that. It's religion. It doesn't matter anymore. I think we're at over an hour. Probably. I hope people appreciate this long dive into all the gear we use. Oh, I have one more piece of gear to talk about. Cry Precision Pants. People ask about this all the time. I use them at all my big matches. I use them at 2-gun. I haven't done a review of them yet for the same reason I hadn't done a review of the Mohawk. I wanted to use it for a long time. They're expensive.
Yeah.
They're stupid expensive.
Yeah.
Okay, here's my brief review. They're worth it.
Okay.
They'll be in the full review. But the fact is, those knee pads that are there when you want them to be, but not there when you don't want them to be, and the fact they're not in the way. The pouches on the side of the pants are designed to hold extra magazines or water bottles or things. There's tons of pockets everywhere to hold stuff. I had equipped the extendable rod in case I got a stuck case or something in one of those pockets. Yeah. I stuck extra mags in the pockets when I needed them to. The knee pads, like I said, are incredibly perfect.
Worth it.
You pay big money, you buy them once, you cry once, you wear them until they literally fall apart, and then you buy another one.
I think every pair I've seen someone wearing has been repaired in at least one place.
But they're made in New York City, I think, and they're Brooklyn. I think they're made in Brooklyn. But they are U.S. made in one of the more expensive places in the U.S. to make stuff, and those pants are fantastic. So you'll get a full review on that, but that was great. Other than that, we've gone through everything.
I think so.
I hope people appreciate this deep dive. This is the kind of stuff that we can now do because we're not clickbait.
Yep.
Well, not that we ever were. But because we're wholly Patreon, no, I hope not. But because we're wholly Patreon supported, we're now playing to the core audience, the people that want this level of detail.
Yeah.
And those are the people that I think are probably the ones helping support us through Patreon.
Absolutely.
So thank you guys for being those guys. And if you're not doing that already, consider doing it. If you can't, the other thing you can do is subscribe to the channel and share this content with your friends, because we can't rely on YouTube algorithms, and you sharing our content is as valuable as putting $1 in the Patreon pot.
Yep.
So thanks for watching.
Or listening.
Or listening, because this is a podcast for Patreon supporters. This will turn into an audio podcast, so if you want to listen to it in your car instead of watching the video, that's one of the benefits we can give to our Patreon supporters.
Yep, it is.
Thanks a lot. Hard as Hell 2 Gun next year, 2018.
Yeah.
Even bigger,
We'll be
even
there.
better. Well, I'll be there for sure.
Come join us.
Yeah. Thanks.